Today's devotional will come from Matthew chapter 26, starting at verse 36. It reads, "Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, 'Sit here while I go over there and pray.' He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, 'My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me.' Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, 'My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will.' Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. 'Could you men not keep watch with me for 1 hour?' he asked Peter. 'Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak.'" Three times Jesus mentions the word watch. Now, of course, this is translated into the English. In the original Greek language, this word literally means be sleepless. And what did the disciples do? The very thing that Jesus asked them not to do. They fell asleep. He asked them to watch, and they fell asleep. Now, when we want to stay alert, what do? We run to the nectar of the gods, right? We take some coffee, some Mountain Dew, or whatever caffeine that we can get our hands on to stay alert. To if we got to drive a long distance, if we got to stay up late, if we got to get up early, right? We do things to stay alert, right? Well, and some of you, maybe you grew up in a military family, maybe you have been previously active duty or reserve, and you're familiar with the word watch. When somebody is on watch, this means that they are looking and listening for anything unusual while everyone else is sleeping. If you're on watch, you're responsible for keeping your eyes and your ears open to the enemy. Now, I grew up in the United States. I was very involved as a teenager with the Boy Scouts of America. And once a year, we looked forward to this one weekend that the adults called Pioneering Camp Out, because it was a display of all of our knowledge of knots and lashings. But the boys affectionately called it War Games. Essentially, it was capture the flag among 3 patrols. And we had until 12 noon on Saturday to build a freestanding fort with, meaning it couldn't be attached to a tree, freestanding fort made with the lashings and the knots that we knew. And we had to capture all 3 flags of the patrols by 5 o'clock. There was more to it, but my last year, a number of us were older, and we said, we're going to play this smarter. And we chose the hill. So we drug all of our supplies up to this hill, and we built this tall tower. Why? Because we wanted to see the other patrols coming. And indeed we did. We built a platform way up high on that tower, and we made sure that somebody from our patrol was always at the top of that tower. Now, those of us that were below, we couldn't necessarily see who was coming, but the one that was watching on the tower, with eyes open and ears listening, could tell us when and where somebody was coming, or a group of people were coming. Jesus talked to his disciples and he said, watch and pray. Watch and pray. In fact, we see earlier when he taught the disciples how to pray, he actually led them to pray to God, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Lead us not into temptation. That sounds kind of funny, like, well, would God lead us to temptation? Well, God is not the tempter. We do know that biblically. God's not the tempter. But when we read Jesus early on, right before his ministry, he was led into the wilderness. The Bible says, by the Spirit, He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Why? The Bible says specifically, to be tempted. To be tempted. And Jesus is telling his disciples, pray that that doesn't happen. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from evil. Why? Why would Jesus say this? He explains it. So that you will not fall into temptation. So I just want us to take a moment. Go ahead and close your eyes with me. And we're just going to take a moment to watch and pray. Take a moment in prayer to become spiritually alert. Watch for the methods the enemy will use to hinder your spiritual walk today. I want you to prayerfully claim power to defeat the enemy in each of these areas. Amen. Indeed, like the disciples, we're often caught sleeping. And we are unaware of all the temptation that's around us, of the settings that are around us that are linked to our temptations. So when you take a drink this week of your caffeine, whatever your favorite choice is, may it be a reminder to watch and pray. Amen. God bless you.